Good evening. Thank you for watching my little video. This, as you see, is called my trip to Hellevoetsluis. Hellevoetsluis, you ask? What's that all about? Where is it? What is Hellevoetsluis? Well, I'll explain in a minute what it's all about. But basically, I keep my little boat, I have a little boat which I keep in Emsworth near Portsmouth. And most summers I sail it down here into Brittany. But this year, for reasons I shall explain in a minute, I'm going to sail east up the channel to Holland, where Hellevoetsluis is.
I bought this little boat in 2005 in November, and during the summer of 2006 I sailed it back from La Rochelle up to Emsworth, which is a little place near Portsmouth. This year I'm going to sail out of Emsworth and up the English Channel, past Dover and Calais, past through Belgium and up into the lower sections of the inland waters of Holland. And here's a picture of the boat which shows it in general. It's really just a dinghy with a lid on, and it can in fact lift its keel and go on the beach. Now this is the book that really inspired me to go to Holland. It's called The Cruising Guide of the Midlands, and on the front cover is a picture of a windmill. Windmills. As you know, Jonathan's done a splendid video of windmills and it's very inspiring. So I bought this book and flipped over into, I studied it of course, and here's a general chartlet of the area which I wish to go. That front cover, by the way, is a picture of the port of Hellevoetsluis, which is what inspired me, which is what this is all about. So I can leave Blankenberg, where I've been many times before, up to Hellevoetsluis, where there's a lock, and go into what is called the Oosterschelde, which is tidal but sheltered, up through these meres and then eventually there is Hellevoetsluis. Here is Oban, my little boat, built in 1995, and it's been here since then. Here's my friend Frank. The two of us are leaving on the 17th of July 2014. We slip out of our berth and proceed out of the marina. I often jest with the harbour master and I tell him that this is the finest berth in Britain. It's very picturesque, as you see, in my little boat, with Frank and I potter out in the early morning on the high tide. This water that you see in front of you now remains 2 meters or so deep, but we're just about to cross a little dam called the Sill, where that white post is, and beyond there the water here in Emsworth Creek dries out. It's just a muddy plateau. So early in the morning we set off down Chichester Harbour. The sun's rising and there are many moored boats as we proceed southwards. The wind is perfect and we are zapping along with the tide. Here's Frank. The boat is going at about 5 or 6 knots out of Chichester Harbour in the southerly direction. We have to buck the tide initially as we turn in an easterly direction, but that doesn't really matter. It's a splendour. Here we are. We're leaving Chichester Harbour, going south, round Selseybill in an easterly direction, past Brighton and Littlehampton, past Seaford into Eastbourne. Here we are, Seaford Head on the left, the Seven Sisters on our port side. It's 5 p.m. and we spent all day. We could of course driven in about an hour and a half, but here we are. Look at that lovely lighthouse. That is the logo of the East Sussex movie makers. Next day we leave Eastbourne and we sail east again, past Rye, past Dungeness, past Folkestone into Dover. Here is the power station at Dungeness, a nuclear power station, and we are zapping along. Here's our speedometers, just over 6 knots, and that nuclear power station is the equivalent of about 2,000 or 3,000 wind turbines. Are we in favour of nuclear power? Well, personally I am. The red dust is up there, and we proceed to Dover. Next day, we proceed from Dover up to CS4 Buoy, go across the shipping channel. There's 400 ships a day go through the English Channel at this point. We go over the separation zone, and we proceed towards a little port which is to the east of Calais called Gravelines. It was just off Gravelines that Francis Drake had a battle with the Spanish Armada in 1588. Here are some ships as we cross the channel. There's another yacht there with us. Numerous ships. We only see 2 or 3. It's rather misty, and we managed to dodge in and out and arrive at the river of Gravelines. Notice this channel is protected with tetrapods, large concrete structures which prevent the North Sea from corroding the entrance. Why don't we have those at Berlin Gap, we ask ourselves. It might cost a few million, but it would protect the coast at that critical point. This is the village of Gravelines. It's a bit sordid, really, and this channel, believe it or not, dries out. Here's a little chartlet showing us coming into the channel in the southeasterly direction as we proceed to a marina just next to a large fort complex built by Vauban. This is the lifeboat station. And we proceed up the river. Here is the marina. That lock gate there, which you see ahead, will close to keep us sheltered for the tide as it goes out. My friend Professor Borry, who's come across from Dover, is with me. Next day, we proceed on up the coast past Dunkirk, where 338 Allied soldiers escaped in 1944 June. We see other boats, a tug. At the beaches beyond, 68,000 soldiers lost their lives in that area in June 44. There are 4 French patrol boats which are cruising up and down, trying to prevent and save immigrants crossing the channel at this critical point. So at the end of this 4th day, we are now sailing in to Nieuwpoort in Belgium. This, believe it or not, is the 2nd biggest marina in Europe after La Rochelle. Incredible. The speed is good, and I'm not going to show you any pictures of the actual towns or in fact people. Right, 5th day we go from Nieuwpoort up to a place called Blankenberg. We pass the Belgian beaches. We can see the blocks of flats beyond. There are many fishing boats like this one. My daughters have joined me, and here we are in a restaurant in the evening, looking out over the North Sea at the entrance of Blankenberg, which is just next to Zeebrugge, a little fishing port. And the North Sea looks very benign. Next day, we leave Blankenberg, and my daughters go home by car. We have our Belgian courtesy ensign up. The weather is perfect. My friend Frank Pitt, who did the first stage, has now rejoined me. He caught a Eurostar train from Ebbsfleet, went to Brussels, which took him, I don't know, about 2 hours presumably, and then a train. I met him there, a train back down to Blankenberg. He's resting in the evening as we approach the entrance to the Dutch waters at a place called Hellevoetsluis. Notice the self-steering gear there. It's the evening, the sun is setting. It's about 9 p.m. and we wonder whether or not we are going to be allowed to go into the shipping lock, which is designed. There's the shipping lock in the area. We get on the radio and we ask the lockkeeper if this 26-foot plastic boat of the smallest type you can possibly imagine. The lockkeeper says yes. He opens the gates, and here we are inside. The lockkeeper's up there in that tower. There's a motorway bridge above our heads, as you can see, and there's the lock gate, which is the entrance there to the Dutch waters. It's now dark, and we haven't got a chart of the Dutch waters, and we enter and find a marina for the night. Pot Marina. Next day, we leave there and we sail under that bridge. This is the longest bridge in Europe. It's got 55 spans of 95 meters each. it's got enough space for our mast, which is 12 metres high, to pass underneath. And we sail on. There are numerous coasters which are joining us. Here's our self-steering gear again. The weather is perfect. The electric ram is keeping us on course, as you see. The course is 047, which is northeast to you and me. Here is one of the Dutch coasters. They have a very large fleet of such vessels which trundle up and down carrying heavy gravel and coal and whatever. They've got the biggest port complex in the world, the Dutch, and they spent £39 billion on coastal protection in the last 20 years. Can you imagine that? Here's an example of their civil engineering, a massive rig being towed. We are now arriving at the little town of Willemstad. It has a moat around it and a bund. My friend Frank and I are looking for a restaurant. It's very quaint. There's a beautiful clock tower, many bars, and you can tie up in the middle of the town. Next day we sail from Willemstad to Hellevoetsluis. Here is a little chartered by the lock, and there's a fine barge. And now, this is what we came to see. The windmill in the port of Hellevoetsluis. We have achieved what we set out to do. We look around the town, and we go up to the windmill, which is of particular interest. But anticlimax, though, it's not actually working. It's just sitting there. The wind is blowing. Hurricane Bertha is blowing. It's come across the Atlantic. So we return. We go through many, many locks like this and go under bridges as we proceed back along many canals. We take a week getting back from Hellevoetsluis to Flushing. Flushing is where we're going to leave the inland waters and go back into the North Sea. It's blowing from the southwest, which is the prevailing wind. Here we are, leaving Flushing on our way back to Blankenberg. It's a 4-6 on the nose. The little boat is struggling. It's crashing. We've reduced sail right the way down to the minimum. 3 reefs in the main and a little tiny jib. The sun is coming up in the morning, and there's a ship there, and we proceed back down the channel past the North Sea. The speed is excellent, over 7 knots, and we've only got 5.8 to go to Blankenberg. Next day we leave to go back home. Here the sun is coming up over in a northeasterly direction as we proceed down the river. And we go out into the North Sea and proceed down towards Calais. There are numerous ships which are proceeding up past Dunkirk. This particular one is unladen in ballast, and we reach Calais. Next day we cross Calais back to Dover. It's blowing like stink. Southwest 6, not too bad really, but it's quite a lot for a small boat. My crew here, Andre and my brother, are with me as we go into the port of Dover western entrance. We have our French ensign up at the moment. Oban has got dual nationality. It's registered in France and is also registered in Britain. Next day we leave Dover. The wind is in the north. It's quite strong, and we manage to zap back down the channel, which is amazing. Very good luck. As we leave the western entrance of Dover, we proceed down. How far can we get on this penultimate day? In the evening we are crossing Beachy Head yet again. It's the end of the voyage, and there in the background, what do we see? The logo of the East Sussex movie makers. Hooray for that. So in the evening we go to Dover, and the next day we proceed back into the Emsworth Creek in the evening. Here we are, the Emsworth Creek, with my 2 friends, Frank Pitt and Tony Hughes. We can proceed back on the high tide, into Emsworth, and that's it. Good night. Goodbye.